Today on Central Illinois on the Record, the State House is back in session, but did lawmakers tackle the budget? Plus, we're sitting down with a young leader in Central Illinois, what the student body president at ISU is saying about young people and politics. And medical marijuana in Illinois, what the CEO of Revolution Enterprises has to say about when pot will be available to patients.
Now, from your local election headquarters, this is Central Illinois on the Record.
Welcome to Central Illinois on the Record. I'm Paul Cicchini. We start with news that broke Friday morning. House Speaker John Boehner is resigning at the end of October. Boehner was elected to the U.S. Congress in 1990 as the representative from Ohio's 8th District. He was elected as Speaker of the House 3 times, most recently this January. Major news in Central Illinois, and it's having an impact worldwide. Caterpillar says it's cutting 10,000 jobs by 2018, part of an effort to cut costs by about $1.5 billion. Our Maria Chandler has more on what this means for Big Yellow.
Because of the sheer number of people and the concentration of people we have in the U.S., in Illinois, and in Peoria, the impact will be significant.
Manufacturing giant Caterpillar taking an unprecedented step Thursday, cutting jobs and costs, closing facilities, and overhauling several business sectors. Company leaders say when it's all in place, it will lower operating costs by $1.5 billion.
It is something we have to do in reaction to past and current and future market conditions. And what we're seeing today, we lowered this year's outlook by another $1 billion, and we're expecting it to be even lower next year.
Big Yellow is facing a tough climate in key sectors like mining and energy, and has for the last 3 years. Caterpillar CEO Doug Oberhelman says the company is up against balancing industries known for ebb and flow while trying to protect Caterpillar investors. He says our strategy is to deliver superior total shareholder returns through the business cycle, and growth is a key element to that strategy. However, several of the key industries we serve, including mining, oil and gas, construction and rail, have a long history of substantial cyclicality. While they are the right businesses to be in for the long term, we have to manage through what can be considerable and sometimes prolonged downturns. The downward slope is only expected to continue in 2016, and in all 3 of Caterpillar's largest segments, construction, energy and transportation, and resources, with oil and gas slated to drop the most. It will mark the first time in CAT's history that sales and revenue have fallen 4 years in a row. Because of that, CAT started the planning process earlier than usual, leading to the major announcement.
Certainly we know this is tough news. This is tough news to deliver. This is tough news for our employees and their families to hear. We know they're going to have a lot of questions.
All right, obviously Caterpillar, a big announcement on Thursday, 10,000 job cuts. We saw the share price of Caterpillar stock drop on Thursday. More than $4.
Absolutely more than $4, but a continuation of the theme throughout the year, and accounted for about 1/3 of the Dow's loss for the day.
And it was a big drop on the Dow on Thursday, and it's something that China has played a role in, the global mining industry in general, and cheap oil.
Cheap oil, the commodity prices are at the heart of that with copper, oil, and the like, but also the strengthening dollar. We can't diminish that that's a theme that probably will resonate going into 2016.
I guess if there's a positive, it's that we go back to 2009 and recall that 20,000 jobs, more than 20,000 jobs were announced that they were being cut back in 2009. This is 10,000, but we're seeing 4,000 to 5,000 by 2016. So it's a big drop. Is the stock at Caterpillar now stable?
Well, we think that as a pre-announcement, what we heard Thursday, we would want to wait till their quarterly earnings are provided in early October, that they might offer some additional guidance into what they expect to do, not only from the restructuring standpoint, but where incremental revenue growth is going to be forthcoming. And that revenue growth is critical to actually thinking that the stock price is stabilized.
Or is there one thing people can look for other than the bottom line in those?
Well, hopefully it's new development out of the new divisions that they're creating. There's a lot of intellectual, institutional knowledge within Caterpillar. Hopefully that can drive new products and new opportunities for us here locally.
All right, thank you very much. Jim Stoll, Senior Vice President at Baird. Illinois is closing in on 3 whole months without a budget in place. Parents protesting at the Capitol Thursday continued their calls for a deal. A $3.8 billion spending plan for health and human services did clear a committee of the whole without opposition. For the past 3 months, providers have not been paid. They include physical therapists, speech pathologists, nutritionists, social workers, nurses, and doctors. Parents say these services offer 100% results to children who need it.
Our oldest daughter receives physical therapy in the early intervention program. She had difficulty with walking, her legs rotated in, she needed orthotics. Last year she ran an 8-minute and 30-second mile.
Just this month, the Senate passed a measure that would fund health services, including the autism program and early intervention. Advocates say the lack of a budget is causing more than 23,000 children to be at risk of losing early intervention services. A group collecting signatures for a redistricting ballot initiative is more than halfway to its goal. For now, state lawmakers draw the boundaries. The Independent Map campaign is trying to change that and has collected about 300,000 signatures, putting it halfway toward its goal.
Legislators pick their voters instead of voters picking their legislators. And what we wind up with are districts that are lopsided for one or the other.
This is the third year in a row an independent group has asked to get the redistricting question on the ballot. They want the constitutional amendment before voters head to the ballots in 2016. Making payments to the dead. A report shows the top state pension funds make hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments to the grave each year. There's not much that can be done to prevent it, and it doesn't help there's no national death registry. A spokesperson says they can often get most of the money back in time, but making these accidental payments are inevitable.
The last thing that's on a family member's mind when their loved one dies is to notify TRS to tell them to stop the benefit.
It's another black eye for these funds, which, is probably the largest issue in the state.
A report by the Better Government Association showed the state's 15 largest pension funds made more than $2 million in payments to the dead. Authors of the report said technology, including direct deposits, have opened a door for more fraud. Only 3/4 of states actively report deaths to the Social Security Registry, which means funds can easily lose track of retirees when they leave Illinois. Still ahead, he's the CEO of a company that's bringing medical marijuana to Illinois. What he has to say about when his product will be on dispensary shelves. But first, we're sitting down with the student body president at Illinois State University. All right, welcome back to Central Illinois on the Record. I'm joined now by Senior Student Body President at Illinois State University, Ryan Powers. Ryan, thanks for joining the program.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I want to know first, why did you get into student leadership?
Well, I got into student leadership for one. I wanted to get more involved in the university and kind of learn more about the university. But also I wanted to make some changes, and I knew the best way to make those changes was getting involved in student leadership and running for student body president.
So once you are elected and now you're the man, what does that mean? What do you do kind of on a day-to-day basis as a student leader?
Well, I do a lot of things, but I think I have two main responsibilities. One is being the liaison to the students and the administration. So if the students have any issues, I can bring that up to the administration and vice versa. I also represent the students in local government, state government, and even sometimes the federal government.
All right, so you are somebody who's obviously motivated, interested in politics. It's something that not a lot of students, young people, are interested in. How do you get more young people interested and engaged in politics?
Well, I think the best way is finding issues that affect students immediately. So, you know, with the state right now and the budget stalemate, that's a great way to get students involved in politics. And once they start getting involved in politics, hopefully they'll start liking it, and then they'll actually go out and vote.
But you use the budget as an example. That's a pretty frustrating thing to deal with, obviously. But it's something that has had an impact on college students in particular.
Exactly, and it definitely affects students, especially college affordability, and maybe not even be able to come next semester.
So when it comes to what you want to do next, obviously you're politically engaged now. It's something you're interested in. Is that something you want to pursue in the future?
Yeah, I think I do want to run for office later in the future. Hopefully I'll be going to law school after college and then pursuing politics after that.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting.
Yes, it does.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much for joining the program. Really appreciate it. I think we're going to have to check in with you again in the future as the school year gets a little bit farther in.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan Powers is the student body president at Illinois State University. All right, still ahead, the panel talks about what cuts at Caterpillar mean to Central Illinois. But up next, we're sitting down with the CEO of Revolution Enterprises about when medical marijuana will be available in Central Illinois.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
All right, welcome back. Joining the program now to talk medical marijuana, Tim McGraw. He's the CEO at Revolution Enterprises. Thank you for joining the program.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
All right, so the first thing I want to talk about, and obviously medical marijuana would be the broad topic of our conversation, but when you and I last spoke, we were outside of your facility in Delavan. You were just really getting things up and running, did the grand opening. Since then, some big things have happened in the state as it relates to the medical marijuana pilot program.
Correct.
One of those being the governor vetoed a measure that would have extended the pilot program. You've invested, your company's invested a lot of money across the state in medical marijuana. It's a huge venture that you've undertaken. That's got to be kind of like a gut punch.
A little bit, but we still have faith in the program. The program was designed to be expanded over time. It's important to note the governor didn't say no. He didn't reject the conditions. He didn't reject the science. We hope it's just a delay. What's really sad for us is to see the patients that I talk to every day that can be helped immensely by cannabis, that are going to have to wait, and within 30 days or so, we're going to have medicine available. So politics with getting between patients and their medicine is just ridiculous, we think.
And you brought up two things I want to talk about: when patients are going to get their medicine, and the conditions that patients are dealing with. And go back to Springfield, and the governor and health board rejected a variety of ailments that could have been added to the program for now. The biggest one, probably, that's pulling the most headlines, is PTSD.
Absolutely. I know hundreds and dozens personally of veterans that effectively in about 45 days will be made criminals because they won't have legal access to cannabis. Right now we have 46 people a day overdose from painkillers, and 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Those statistics should make anybody sick. So obviously the way we're going about the drug war now is not working. The results are in. Cannabis is a safe and effective medicine that saves lives.
It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays itself out in the future. Well, thank you very much for joining the program. I really appreciate it. Tim McGraw is the CEO of Revolution Enterprises. Still ahead, Hillary Clinton weighs in on the Keystone XL pipeline, what she had to say about the controversial project, and the panel looks at Caterpillar's decision to cut back and what it means for Central Illinois.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
All right, welcome back again. Joining the panel now, Alex Rusciano from Peoria Public Radio, and from the Peoria Journal-Star, Chris Caregard. Today, obviously talking somewhat of a somber topic in Central Illinois, right on the heels a couple days ago of Caterpillar's announcement that thousands of employees, 4 to 5, are going to be laid off in the near future, and then through 2018, up to 10,000 employees. A lot of people, obviously a huge impact, and it's not just going to be felt in Illinois, but around the globe. It's also something, though, that Caterpillar has seen before on a much larger scale in 2009.
Absolutely. In 2009, of course, with the economic downturn that year, and before that, for other reasons, for labor unrest in the 90s, in the 80s, and even before that. And while the numbers seem large here, in the initial sweep, it only, not to minimize it, but it only accounts for 4% of the workforce now, a total of 8% through 2018. But those are still significant numbers when you look at the human element that gets into it.
Yeah, that's the human element. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's something that we've also been talking about seeing in Springfield with the budget issue. I mean, it's easy to talk numbers, dollars and cents, but $1.5 billion for Caterpillar that's a lot of people.
Absolutely, and one of the things that you mentioned regarding the issue with Springfield and kind of this nebulous, uncertain, murky budget situation is the fact that people are already hurting right now. And then if you add on to that the fact that usually when people might find themselves out of a job or getting less income, they might rely on state agencies, state services. The actual impact of this, the actual ripple effect, is going to be pretty difficult to measure, and we probably won't know the sheer gravity of this situation regarding both this news from Caterpillar but also the state situation until probably many months from now.
Well, and I hate to pile on, but we talk about no state budget, major layoffs at Caterpillar, and Congress is facing a budget deadline of its own and staring down a potential shutdown, which would just compound the problem.
Right, and as far as what Caterpillar has long argued, as far as the need for economic certainty, for a heavy construction company that draws a substantial amount of its profits from, for example, road building, for there to be no long-term transportation legislation and other items like that are sort of pushed to the side when you have a Congress that's trying to work on a full-year budget and living continuing resolution to continuing resolution. The coming power vacuum of there being no Speaker of the House or of having to get a new Speaker of the House elected and put into place and effectively learn the ropes of the operation and try to manage a caucus at the same time. All of that creates additional uncertainty for a company that's already being hammered in the mining sector, the energy sector, has an uncertain construction sector. Caterpillar faces a lot of challenges.
Yeah, Chris, I want to go back to something that you mentioned, because you mentioned how big a role Caterpillar plays when it comes to roads and highway building, because that's something that the country's newest congressman, Darren LaHood, said in a statement yesterday, that one of his top priorities is making sure that a long-term road funding bill is passed. And Alex, we've been obviously talking not just about roads as they relate to communities around central Illinois, but the national infrastructure. So that could be a big boost to a company like Caterpillar.
Absolutely, and that's something that Congressman LaHood's father, former Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood, has said that especially when you compare the United States to other countries, that infrastructure in many other countries is so much more advanced and further along that it's so important for not only Caterpillar but the nation as a whole to hammer something out and just to have that, as Chris was touching on, that kind of federal funding security of being able to rely or bank on either future projects or future investment. Very important to a company as large as Caterpillar.
Yeah, and again, when we talk about the ripple effects, whether it's infrastructure or people losing jobs across central Illinois, obviously shareholders in Wall Street are something that the company is beholden to as well, and it made up a significant chunk of the drop in the Dow yesterday. And so, when you look at that, one thing that sometimes gets overlooked are the people who are right here who rely on Caterpillar. And Andy Kravitz wrote yesterday about just the people who are food cart vendors in downtown Peoria, right outside of Caterpillar's headquarters, who serve lunch to these people. And if that number shrinks, that's tough, obviously, the ripple effect in the local economy.
Right. It's absolutely something where we don't often consider all of the other intangibles, the follow-ons from a company like Caterpillar, whether that's the suppliers in town, parts manufacturers in town that then provide material to Caterpillar, whether that's shipping to Caterpillar or something as simple as those push carts. I recall when we did a special section on Caterpillar recently, talking to some of those vendors who at the time Caterpillar was on the upswing and they were hiring more people, and they were ecstatic at the idea because to them that's a steady customer base. You look at a city of Peoria that's trying to rebuild its downtown into the warehouse district. Even the new apartments that the city council voted on this past week were pitched as being something that helps attract millennials, young people that Caterpillar would be hiring into its corporate offices right nearby. Well, if you have a downturn and Caterpillar is hiring less and indeed actively letting people go, what does that do to the viability of that project?
Yeah, and just to, when you talk about expansion and rebuilding, obviously earlier this year, back in February, Caterpillar announces that it's going to expand its global headquarters in downtown Peoria, something they say they're still doing, but an announcement like this is going to put that to the back burner, obviously.
That's right, Paul. And what's interesting to note here is that exactly you have the world headquarters issue, but also the fact that Caterpillar has mentioned that even given this week's news about the coming reductions, the company still seeks to remain profitable, and we've seen that in the past. But also, it's interesting to note from a statewide perspective that the state has already, since January, been seeing reductions. Caterpillar's announced reductions. You have a facility reduction in Aurora. You have reductions in Pontiac and in Decatur, and of course the East Peoria facility. So the state, and we have local economic officials saying that effectively the state has given a lot this year alone regarding certain changes with Caterpillar, and then you add on to that this news, it certainly paints a very interesting picture.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's back-breaking for the community, but it's certainly something that everybody's going to have to band together, whether it's in the greater Peoria area, central Illinois, to Springfield, to Congress, and it's going to be interesting to see how, of course, this is handled going forward. Thank you both for joining the panel again. Alex Rusciano from Peoria Public Radio, Chris Kjaergaard from the Peoria Journal-Star. Thank you, gentlemen, both for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, The Donald is releasing a new book. When it comes out and what you can expect. And the state mourns a sitting representative, how Esther Golar made her mark in Springfield. Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton is on the record with her opposition to the Keystone Pipeline. Until Tuesday, she refused to say if she was for or against it. She initially said she wouldn't take a position since she led the State Department when the permitting process began. The pipeline would cross nearly 1,200 miles, bringing crude oil from Canada to the Gulf Coast. Illinois is mourning the loss of State Representative Esther Golar of Chicago. She was a champion for her constituents, advocating for some of the most vulnerable citizens and campaigning for changes in education, restorative justice, and mental illness. She believed everyone deserved an equal shot, and she pursued every opportunity to advance fair treatment and protection for the LGBT community. And Donald Trump says his book is coming out next month, and it's going to be a bestseller. The book, which doesn't have a title yet, is scheduled for release October 27th. The publisher says it will explore Trump's views on the economy, immigration, and national security. Trump says he hasn't had so much fun writing a book since his 1987 bestseller, The Art of the Deal. That's going to do it for this edition of Central Illinois on the Record. Of course, you can stay connected with the show using social media. Connect with WMBD and me on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag CIOTR. We'll see you next week.
views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of WMBD, WIZZ, or Nexstar Broadcasting Group.